Isn't it rather amusing that many suppliers believe their supply chains are really good because, well, this doesn't seem to be the case. In fact, every year when businesses are surveyed by trade magazines and supply chain consulting firms, cracks and loopholes are always discovered. Besides the many problems, it has also been discovered that the typical supply chain has become much more complex over the years as manufacturing expands to different parts of the world. Now, production leads take longer time as products continue to diversify. As a result, there is a greater need to improve supply chain speed and accuracy. Does this mean that complexity itself is a problem? Let's find out. Before starting, make sure to click the like and subscribe buttons to stay updated with the latest content. It is no doubt that complexity across supply chains is continuously increasing, posing a major threat to the economy.
While these threats are far from new, they have grown to be considered as less of a problem and as empty threats, especially since the world economy is still running despite their existence. In the end, we somehow managed to cope
with the current complexity levels and ensure it does not reach the disaster mark, thanks to the development of new methods and tools. But what exactly is supply chain complexity, and how serious a problem is it? In many cases, complexity is confused with the idea of something being complicated. Well, while supply chains are complex, they are not necessarily complicated. For example, you can buy an instrument and decide to assemble it yourself using the manual as a guide. If you're doing it for the first time, it can be considered a task, but it can become more or less complicated depending on the volume of the instruction manual, and maybe your mechanical skills. In any case, you can be sure that the equipment will be ready in reasonable time. However, this task is not complex because the instructions were there to lead you step by step in a linear, straightforward direction until the eventual completion of the wardrobe. In contrast, a complex task is very dynamic and consists of unforeseeable elements that do not emerge linearly, but simultaneously, somewhat overlapping one another. In this case, soccer can be called a complex game, because at the time of kickoff, no one knows where the ball will be on the field in the next 10 seconds. Also, interdependencies between elements are the heart of the game. The players, the ball, the pitch, the weather, and so on. This is the case with supply chains. Most often, modern products require specialized skills to manufacture, and very few companies have the capabilities needed to produce the necessary materials and manufacture the products in-house. So, to solve this problem, manufacturers often turn to suppliers who focus on the specific area or niche. Those suppliers, in turn, rely on many other subcontractors and specialists to ultimately produce or assemble the necessary materials and components. Now, this looks great, but in reality, it could be a problem because a lag from a contractor can ultimately affect the whole industry. Let's take the automotive industry, for example. Currently, the automotive industry is going through a supply crisis. This is due to a shortage of semiconductors and the Ukraine war disrupting shipments of key components. This occurrence is a perfect reflection of the frailty of supply chains and how a disturbance in one area can have severe consequences across the entire sector. In the automotive industry, manufacturers run their plants based on the just-in-time delivery of parts. A car can be made from up to 25,000 separate parts, and many of these are built from various components. A braking system, for example, features calipers, pads, pistons, link pins, discs, brackets, and more. Now, each of these components need to be sourced and manufactured, but they also rely on other suppliers, fabricators, and raw material suppliers from different parts of the world, and are invariably affected by whatever factors affect those places. China is one nation where this happens. In fact, there is a new joke that goes, "Made in China" is actually made by someone else. And it is a result of the multiple suppliers in the supply chain and the fact that multinational companies from Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and the United States are using China as the final assembly station in their vast global production networks. This method of tagging goods at their final assembly stop has further added to the complexity of supply chains, disrupting global trade figures and inflating China into a bigger trade threat than it actually is. More than ever, it is a trend for organizations to introduce complexity into their supply chains in order to increase revenues. Surely shying away from expanding your business to avoid supply chain complexity is not an option. But something can be done to overcome the challenges posed by an increasingly complex supply chain. The first step is to identify what's causing the problem in the first place. From a research by APICS and Michigan State University, it has been revealed that there are three main sources of complexity in the supply chain, the first being customer accommodation. No doubt meeting the needs and demands of customers is by far the biggest challenge facing today's supply chain professionals. Not only do customers expect to receive their products in a timely manner, they're also selective about the delivery of the products, making it a big task for companies to meet customers' demands. Next, globalization. While many supply chains are globalizing, doing so will no doubt introduce more complexity. Beyond juggling transportation logistics, adopting a globalized supply chain means that you will need to stack and modify your products in order to accommodate the cultures of different markets. You will also need to consider legal and regulatory issues that can arise when working with different countries. No doubt working and developing relationships with suppliers outside of your home base can take a lot of time and effort. And the more interesting part is, there is no guarantee of result. Also, if a proper structure isn't created, understanding suppliers' customs and dealing with the differences in quality can lead to frustration. Supply chain trends and internal pressures is another cause of complexity. Sometimes the causes for complexity don't come from outside sources. In fact, many issues within the chain come simply from the way the business works. Some organizations require custom processes with specialized suppliers, which can restrict options and make the supply chain less responsive. Also, seeing decisions made by different divisions of an organization can greatly impact the supply chain department. It is obvious that manufacturers across the globe have been doing it wrong, making the supply chain unnecessarily complex. This wasn't known until the coronavirus, U.S.-China trade war, and the demand shock that followed the global shutdown of 2020 came and exposed vulnerabilities in the supply chain management strategies of businesses around the globe. Since then, supply chain managers have come under greater pressure to minimize their dependence on risky suppliers and rethink their use of lean manufacturing strategies while at the same time increasing their domestic production. So, how should manufacturers develop a more proactive supply chain network? Well, for companies, the issue will be how to stay competitive while they make their supply chains more resilient. To meet that challenge, supply chain managers need to understand the risks to their supply chain and take the steps to mitigate vulnerabilities. Those steps include embracing innovations. No doubt, the coronavirus pandemic and the economic shutdown that followed have shown that modern supply chains require continuous improvement if they will remain flexible and adapt to changing market conditions. The pace at which change happens will only increase as organizations put systems in place to help them acclimate and thrive in the post-pandemic logistics landscape. One example of continuous improvement methodology is the lean method, a strategy employed to help remove unnecessary activities that do not add value added from operations and solve the tough business problems that could cause problems for customers. It is also important for manufacturers to prioritize supply chain resilience. A disconnected supply chain creates longer procurement cycles, diminishes quality, increases costs, and ultimately impacts customer satisfaction. Therefore, one of the most common challenges in building a resilient supply chain is effective communication and collaboration within the network. In fact, a survey revealed that collaborating with suppliers to master procurement can result in up to 50% less time than usual managing supply chain activities. Also, by developing strategic partnerships with suppliers, brands can position themselves to apply greater influence on the suppliers to improve quality. Because the more effectively a network collaborates, the more profitable it becomes. Moving forward, companies need to work together to identify how to improve and maximize supply chains. Because looking beyond the efforts, the results obtained from modern supply chains are not sufficient. What do you think? Let us know in the comments section. Also, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for more. See you soon.